Today I'm going to show you how I generally set up my environment. Uh, I generally have one Kali or Parrot machine, and then I have other machines which are generally vulnerable. Or if not vulnerable, generally I don't update them so often, so I don't want to connect them to internet. So the way I do it is first I go to kali.org get Kali and select either ISO or OVA file and download it and then create the Kali virtual machine. Once I have done that, then I go to the Kali settings. Uh, First network adapter, I keep it as NAT. This allows me to connect my Kali machine to internet. Then I also add a second network adapter which is host only. This is what is used to connect to all other machines on the uh, same subnet, which would be host only. I don't keep other machines on the net because they are either vulnerable or not updated regularly. Now, second thing that you can do is if you are using virtual machine settings and are running it on Windows, then you can go to advanced and disable side channel mitigations because this is generally mitigated nowadays. So this you don't need. And if you keep this enabled, then generally your VM will be a little slower. Once you have done these things, then you need to do something on your Kali machine to ensure that you can use both the devices, Ethernet devices correctly. So since I have already done this, I'll quickly show you how I do it. Once you have booted into Kali, click on this and then go to Edit Connections. Whether you are using Genome, XFCE or whatever doesn't matter, but the idea is remains same, right? Now the first interface is ETH0. So you can go to settings for this, change the connection name to ETH0 so that you can easily identify this. Change the device to ETH0 so that the device names remain consistent and they are and you are able to configure them properly. That's all you need to do for ETH0 because this is the net interface, right? And this is what you can use to connect to outside world. Cancel this. Then you can configure the second interface. For the second interface, I give the name correctly to ETH1, change the device to ETH1, and the next one is very important. This will save you a lot of headache. Go to IPv4 settings. There you can go to routes and then select use this connection only for resources on this network and click on OK. Now once you have done this, then you can click on this network icon, uh, left click on this and then uh, enable this, right? So if I disable this, as you can see, uh, E0 is not connected, right? So I can click on this and then it will connect to E0 as well. Now both the interfaces are connected. What this does is, let me increase the size of the font on the terminal so it is easier for you to see. If you see now, IPA, both the interfaces have IP address. E0 has a 192.168.75 address and ETH1 has 192.168.235.129 address. But what is more interesting is if I do a IP route, then you can see that the default is only via the 75.2 IP address, which is the ETH0 IP address. So it is not trying to go through the ETH1 IP address. And since ETH1 doesn't have a Ethernet connection, if you have the default route through ETH1, it would not work. Once you have done this, you can quickly check that you are able to go to internet by going to google.com or whatever site you want to, or you can go to my site blog.mit-agarwal.co.in and you should be able to reach this site. Okay, so this sets up your Kali machine. Now you can install whatever applications you want to, and you can clone whatever repos you want to and install on your tools. Now we will be setting up the Windows machines. So for Windows machines, you can download the Windows ISO from Microsoft, which is valid for 90 days. You don't need you can use it for 90 days without activating it. And once you have created the Windows machine, there is something that you should do, which is first go to Edit Virtual Machine, Options, Advanced, and as I mentioned, you can disable side channel mitigations for Hyper-V enabled hosts. This will at least speed up your Windows a little bit. Uh, Along with this, you can also go to advanced only and enable template mode. Okay. What this enables you to do is basically if you enable the template mode, this can only be used for cloning now. You should not start this VM ever. This will become your base OS for any other VMs that you are creating. This will also save you a lot of space because for every new machine that you create, you can create it as a linked clone, which means that the disk, the new disk that is created is cloned to this VM, and hence it doesn't require the 10-15 GB of the OS that is occupied by the OS, and it only needs the disk space which is required for all the additional things that you will be doing on the VM. Once you have done these two, you can create a snapshot of the VM by going to VM, snapshot, and snapshot manager, and take a snapshot. Now, taking a snapshot is very important because if you don't take a snapshot, then you will not be able to create a linked clone. Linked clone can only be created from a snapshot, and it cannot be created without a snapshot. Once you have done that, you can actually also go for auto protect, but since you are not going to ever start this VM, probably you don't need this for this VM. Now, once these settings are done, then you can go to this VM, right click on this, click on manage clone, and here you can go to clone and then clone from, you can say an existing snapshot, and then you can select the clone snapshot that you have created for the base machine that we had seen just now, right? And then you can go to next. Now here is where you can select whether you want a linked clone or a full clone. As I was mentioning, a linked clone basically means that the 10 GB, 15 GB hard disk that is used in the original VM is not used by the new disk. It will be using the files from that uh, base OS, and all new files will be created on your new hard disk. So all the VMs that you will be created as a linked clone will be using the same 10 GB of OS space. Create a full clone would basically mean that it would copy the disk as is for the new VM, and it will also require that extra 10 GB. But the benefit of creating a full clone is if you want to ever extend the disk, you will be able to do if it is a full clone. In a linked clone, you will not be able to extend the disk because it is linked to the base virtual machine. Uh, So once you have created, generally I create a linked clone because I am going for thin provisioning of the disk, which basically means that even if I say the size of the disk is 120 GB, The actual disk space used will not be 120 GB. It will be whatever your actual OS requires. So if the actual OS is installed in within 10 GB, let's say, then the actual disk space occupied would be only 10 GB, although the virtual disk space is 120 GB. And as you keep using more and more disk, the disk space will keep growing, uh, which basically means that I can have a bigger hard disk size given when I am creating the original base image, and thus I don't need to create a full clone and save a lot of disk space that way. This also is useful from the perspective that if you don't want to keep a snapshots for all the VMs that you are creating, you don't have to. Whenever you see that your cloned VM is becoming slow, or you are uh, unable to recover the disk from the cloned VM and the disk space is nearly 100%, you can just delete that clone and create a new clone, and you will get exactly what you had in your base system, right? So before you take a snapshot of the base system, you can install whatever tools you want on all your VMs, or you can configure whatever else you want on all the VMs, or if you want to configure auto login, and anything that you want to do, you can do on the base system so that it is copied to the uh, cloned VM. You can also have multiple snapshots so that when you are creating a clone, you can select which snapshot you want to use for the clone, and hence you get a different configuration or settings or applications on that specific VM. So that's all I wanted to show you for today. Thank you.